All right, ready when you are.
Okay, let's go. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. We are Book Club, bringing you this episode from vacation in Florida. It's kind of late at night. This is a late night.
It's very late at night.
This is a late night NPR type of vibe you're going to get, I feel like, tonight. But we'll see. We are recording outside also. So if you hear like ocean or wind, it's okay. We are not stuck in a well. Neither WELL nor WHALE. We are just fine. And we're going to talk this week about a graphic novel, very famous graphic novel called Watchmen. Elijah.
Yes.
What did you think about Watchmen?
I loved it.
Loved it?
Loved it.
Had you read it before?
Nope, never read it before. I had seen the film, but I didn't remember the film at all.
You don't remember nothing about the film?
I don't remember anything about the film. I don't know how that happened. I know for a fact that I've seen it, but remembered absolutely nothing about the film.
Dylan.
Yes.
Had you read The Watchmen? Or no, I'm sorry, not The Watchmen. Had you read Watchmen prior to this last fortnight?
I had read it once before and had seen the movie.
How do you feel about Watchmen?
I'm a fan. I think it's very, very, very good.
Okay. I actually disagree with you guys. I did not really care for Watchmen that much. It wasn't terrible, but I didn't get it. It wasn't really my cup of tea. Thought it was kind of a mess. And I hope we can get it. I hope either you guys can convince me that it is one of the 100 greatest novels of all time, as Time Magazine has said, or that I can convince you guys that it's kind of a aimless dreck. All right.
I don't think you're going to convince me of that, but we'll see.
It's certainly not aimless.
I think it's aimless, but we'll get there. Okay. Dylan, having read it before, when did you first read Watchmen?
It was probably about 8 years ago or so. I actually saw the movie first, and after I saw the movie, I decided, hey, I want to read the source material. So yeah, it would have been. I think the movie came out in 2009.
That's correct.
So it would have been sometime shortly after that.
Okay. Well, what is it? What is it about it that you loved? I mean, I guess that's the thing. I think it could be the case that I just don't get it. You know, what is it, Elijah, that you loved?
One of the things that I really like about it is how it plays on these cliches, these comic book cliches, the comic book character of you have the Tinkerer with all of the robots or like his little flying owl thing, and you had the patriotic superhero. All these little comic book cliches. They use those, and then on top of that, showed you a very dark. It's hard to say realistic experience because, I mean, what is a realistic superhero experience? But the darkness and the grittiness of it, and them being in retirement and seeing that side of what you don't see in comic books. And I think one of the quotes was somebody said that's when comics books grew up. I think it was 84 was when it was first written.
86,
86?
87 when
Okay.
it was first published.
Yeah, and when comic books grew up, and I've read several graphic novels. It's for me, it was also really cool seeing this. I didn't know this was the springboard that really started a lot of the stuff that I have read and enjoyed. But as far as loving, I mean, the story's pretty damn cool in itself. Even if you take out any of the things that Time says makes it one of the 100 best novels, and the devices that the writer used, the story itself is just a really cool story.
Okay, I guess. All right, going the 100 greatest novels thing. This isn't a novel. I mean, it really is just a giant comic book, and I think that's silly to say, but like I guess.
Well, it was released in comic book. When it was released as issues. It wasn't bound initially as a graphic novel.
But it still doesn't make it a novel. I mean, it's just. I think a novel has to be. I mean, it's like a long short story or something like that. I guess I don't really technically know what a novel is, but so, I think it is kind of like just a very long story. So, but it doesn't really matter. Like, Time can call it one of the best 100 best novels, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Even if I gave it novel status, still not. I mean, it's still not 100 best novel thing. I don't know. It's just it was. How do you say? I don't know. I just didn't like it. I guess this is where maybe we need to start with this. Do you guys still enjoy reading comic books? I guess we all probably liked comic books growing up, but
I've never been a big fan of comic books.
Really?
No, and I'm still not a big fan of comic books. The main problem I have with comic books just has to deal with the way that I read them. Is that I usually focus on the speech bubbles and the text, and I'll find myself missing context within like the frames of the drawings, the actual visualization of the action. So a lot of times when I'm reading a comic, I'll have to stop and backtrack because I found that I've missed something fairly important because I was just reading the text.
But does that not also apply to Watchmen? Did you not have the same problem with Watchmen?
Yeah, I did, but I was able to overcome that.
Okay,
and kind of on that same thread, this being the second time I've read it, there's a lot of things that I noticed in the art that there's just a lot of like little things in there that I didn't pick up on the first time. Like you can see early in the book, you can see Rorschach out of costume in a lot of crowds and stuff.
Yeah,
carrying around the sign saying that the end is nigh or whatever.
Rorschach is carrying that sign around.
Yeah. That's like his disguise when he's
that's pretty
in
cool.
His Plain Street clothes.
Hey. That's neat.
That's slick stuff. I think he's actually talking to the newspaper vendor every day, right?
Yeah, like, he goes and picks up every day. I guess it's every day the copy. I forget the New Frontiersman or whatever, which is like the far right. It's the folks that he actually sends his journal to when he realizes that he's once he solves the case and they go to confront the big bad guy.
So Elijah,
yeah,
do you still read comic books?
I like to refer to them as my stories. And yeah, I do still enjoy reading comics. I don't do it as much, but I generally pick up maybe one a year, a graphic novel or something.
But like actual comic books, like did you have a series that you read on the reg?
Several series I read on the regular. As a kid, it was The Punisher and Spawn. I loved Spawn. a few years ago, it was Knights of the Old Republic, and there were some Tales of the Jedi. Some of the best Star Wars stories were in comics. Punisher. Punisher's probably my all-time go-to.
It's pretty dark.
Dark stuff.
You're
Raw stuff. The Punisher. I thought about the Punisher a lot while reading Watchmen. Who was it? The Watchmen. There was only one with powers, really. Dr. Manhattan.
yeah. I mean, that was the thing. It was like it was a trend, like a trend from the 30s that people started imitating.
Yeah, and see that was what drew me
Superman.
to the Punisher. Was he didn't have like superpowers other than limitless rage. Yeah, Dylan, you read some. I mean,
Yeah, like you said, a lot of the Tales of the Jedi. I was really into that. A lot of Star Wars, Dark Horse comics. That's most of the comics that I read.
what about you, Ansel?
I had a different experience. I did more superhero type stuff. I liked the Fantastic Four a lot. I thought they were fantastic. Fantastic Four, Captain America. I liked X-Men a lot. X-Men was my jam.
I was a big fan of the cartoon
Yeah,
series.
cartoon
but
was great.
I never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess like I did. I mean, it wasn't like a conscious thing, but like I feel like I grew out of comic books, and reading this book was just exactly like reading any regular comic book. Not even a special comic book, just a regular. Go to Big Star and get a comic book off the rack, and it's basically like The Watchmen, but it's like I don't know, 20 times longer. And by the way, we should maybe introduce ourselves. I know it's about 10 minutes or so into it. My name is Ansel Crowder. I'm the host this week. I picked Watchmen.
I'm Elijah Crowder. I'll be the host next week.
And my name is Dylan Crowder.
Okay, so I have a lot of issues with this book. I want to start with like the fact that it's like an alternative history type thing, maybe an early example. I don't know how far back that goes, but there's like a community of people who really like to read and write what if type books, and that's kind of like that's kind of like what this was, but it didn't really need to be. Like I don't really think like having the events of 50s and 60s were necessary at all. I mean, like the real danger, like the threat is that of mutually assured destruction in a nuclear war, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be in actual historical context for it to work as a plot device. What do you guys think about that? Like, I was under the impression that Watchmen kind of was a, I don't know, sort of a critique on our own society, and I really didn't get that, and maybe I just missed it. But what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it definitely is a critique of our own society. I don't have any like proofs to provide, but I mean, it's kind of like what you said, that even though it's like an alternate timeline or whatever, it's not really that different from the world of
Your X-Men or your Fantastic Four. Is that what you're getting at?
No, I was getting at like what actually happened in the mid '80s during the Cold War. I mean, I guess it would serve to kind of like draw out exactly how the timeline diverged. It was really these mass vigilantes were really the driving force, and then of course the creation of Dr. Manhattan was really the major thing, and that led to an American victory in Vietnam. which kind of set the stage for what the I lost my train there, but I don't know. I think the result of the war in Vietnam has had like lasting effects on the American psyche,
Yeah, for sure.
and then that was really the main difference is that there's this godlike figure that gets created, this all powerful being, and he's an American. That's the main changing force in the two timelines, really.
Okay. What do you think about that, Elijah? Alternative timeline?
I think why not? It makes it just adds interest to the story. As what did you say, Dylan? It was written 86, first published 86, 87?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I wasn't thinking about that. It is
So,
like
I mean,
Cold
it's,
War. I should have been making those connections. But
yeah, it's pertinent for when it was released, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like they changed the historical aspect of it to keep from offending anyone or anything. It just seemed like it just seemed to fit the story of these caped and masked crusaders being in retirement, basically, since Dr. Manhattan came along.
Well, I guess like my main complaint, like first of all, I didn't hate the book, but I mean, I was able to read it. It was never like God, this just sucks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like it was just a mess. Like I didn't really get what it was trying to say, and it was hard to follow. And I actually watched the movie too,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the same way. I think I liked the movie better than the book actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it also was, it's just, I don't know, the stuff just didn't land. And Dylan, you and I had a side conversation yesterday outside the club. It had nothing to do with this, but we were talking about Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6, and 7,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it came up that you really liked Final Fantasy 7. I thought it was good, and I did not care for it at all. And it's the same kind of thing with I really think it's the same kind of feeling I had for that game. You know, it's like everybody seems to love Watchmen, and I just don't like it. And everybody seems to love Final Fantasy 7, and I just don't like it. And I'm totally primed to like both of those things because I love the Final Fantasy games. And I was a lover of comic books, so I thought I would like Watchmen for sure, but it just didn't work out for me.
What are some of your favorite comics?
Captain
You
America,
mentioned X-Men and
X-Men,
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
You like Captain America?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, when I was youngin'.
It's interesting. Watchmen starts with the death of the comedian. He's murdered, and it's just to go ahead and get plot points out onto the show. They're coming out of retirement to find out who's killing superheroes. And actually, when it was pitched, the writer Alan Moore, I think is his name, DC had actually purchased some old comic book characters, the rights from comic book characters from Archie Comics, and they were going to kill off a character named the Shield. And if you look on Wikipedia for the Shield, it's pretty interesting. He's basically like a proto Captain America, like earlier than Captain America, one of the first ever. What are you on? Patriotic, patriotic garb. He had the full American flag get up.
Protector of the flag.
Yeah. And that was how they were going to start it. The protector of the flag being found dead in a bay somewhere. But what did you think about the comedian as a character?
Wait, I just now thought of this. Captain America uses America to defend himself from bullets and stuff. How disrespectful is that?
Well, I'm sure it's against all sorts of flag codes. You're not supposed to make a uniform out of a flag. But
I've got something here just to kind of highlight what I was talking about, and this is from the comic book, and it's a conversation between the character, the comedian Dr. Manhattan, are having immediately after victory is declared in Vietnam, and the comedian says to Dr. Manhattan, "I mean, if we'd lost this war, I don't know. I think it might have driven us a little crazy, as a country. But thanks to you, we didn't, right?" So, yeah, it's kind of basically what I was saying, but in the comedian's words.
Good catch.
Yeah, good catch. The comedian, he was a character who I thought, like, okay, back in the 80s, like, I think we have a lot of the same political issues then as we do now, but, like, I don't know, like, the comedian, the jokes that he was talking about, like, it's all a joke, like in a post-Trump world. I mean, at this point, it stopped being funny, like, a long time ago, So,
Well, yeah, I think that was kind of his point as well, is that, like, the joke wasn't funny even then to him. Like, it's kind of like it's all a joke, but it's all kind of like a sick,
twisted joke.
dark joke.
yeah, but I guess that was maybe a novelty back then, is what I'm saying. And now it's, it's tired. It was wired then, and now it's tired, I guess, if I to put it a better way. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I just really I wanted to like this because I have so many friends who dig it. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
Well, I think again it comes back to we've talked about this several times. Reading something just for the enjoyment of reading it and not trying to dissect it for any hidden wisdom nuggets or whatever you want to call that. I think if you read The Watchmen and just read it as sort of a detective sleuth story, the character of Rorschach is amazing. The character, what's her name? The Silk Spectre. Her
Yep.
background, her finding out who her father truly is, and one of the things I like about it the most is how dark it is. Their stories, they're real, like, they're heroes to the American people, and then at one point they're not. I think the police actually go on strike because they don't want vigilantes doing their jobs anymore, and
Right.
which leads to some act that gets them pretty much banned. But just for intrigue, just for a good sleuth story, the characters themselves were so well thought out that that's what I got most of my enjoyment from reading it out of.
Yeah, see, I didn't take any special liking to any character. They didn't really. I like Dr. Manhattan. I thought he was interesting because he was kind of human and kind of not. He kind of had feelings, kind of not.
He seemed like he got less human as the story went on.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, he was gradually losing his hold on his own humanity.
He was interesting to me, but
See, he's my least favorite character.
really,
Yeah,
interesting.
it just like these godlike abilities are just kind of boring to me at that point. It's I liked the Night Owl
Mm-hmm.
and all of his gadgets. Yeah, I mean
So he's a little,
it's silly to talk about realism in comic books,
yeah.
but it was realism. I mean, the real problems of people beyond. I thought one of the funniest things I thought was them talking about how they just ran out of people to beat up. There were no more villains, really. The villains didn't stand a chance.
Night Owl, he was a little too milquetoast for me, to be honest. I think like he's the kind of guy that Jordan Peterson warns you about.
Reminded me of Cyril Figgis from Archer.
He was kind of like a straight man to the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of. I mean, apart from like the gadgets and everything, he was kind of, like you said, kind of bland.
Here's something that I want to get you guys' intake on. There were these interludes like within the comic book of a comic book, like I can't remember the voyage
Tales
of
the Black Fleet,
the Black Freighter,
Black
or
Freighter,
something.
yeah.
the Black Freighter.
What did you guys think of that? Just general thoughts or specific. I don't care. Just whatever thought comes to your mind, share it with me, please.
I thought it was pretty great. Like it was a pretty good story within a story, and I really like the idea that the people that made comic books in this universe, because that the superheroes were real, like superhero comic books, like just fell in popularity, so they had to come up with something else. And the pirate stories is one of the things that emerged out of that, and that was kind of neat. And I mean, the story of the tale of the Black Freighter is pretty twisted and pretty dark in and of itself.
Pretty grisly, but predictable. You kind of see where it's going early on too. What I liked about that the most was, and several times when it does flash into the tales of the Black Freighter, it has something directly to do with what's going on in the story as well. So it serves as distraction and it highlights.
Right.
Really, really interesting and well done.
Yeah. See, I didn't care for it. I just, I don't know. I didn't think it was necessary. They left it out of the movie. I guess like the movie version I saw, and I thought this for the best.
They actually released like an animated version of it as like a companion to the movie.
Really?
I think in some DVD versions they've got it like cut back into the actual film.
Okay. Well, yeah, I didn't see that one, but yeah, to me it was like it detracted from it. It tried to make it. It's like they were just trying to get on Time's 100 Best Novel list, so they included like the confidential files on people, and it added nothing to the story to me. But again, Final Fantasy VII type mess, Shinra.
That was something that bothered me, was the inserts of like actual case files and psychiatric studies of the characters, and I can't say that it didn't add to the story, because it certainly does.
It does disrupt the flow.
It totally disrupts the flow of you reading it.
And I wonder how that would be different if it were, because it was originally released as 12 comics, and with those little excerpts from the in fiction books and stuff being like inserts at the end of a comic book, that might be a little bit easier to digest because you've got a month or so.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like an afterthought to the story instead of like the beginning of the next chapter. It's like you have to read the stuff that you're really not that interested in, or at least I wasn't, before you can. Okay, I think it would have been easier to digest as a comic, but I do think like I really do feel like I've kind of outgrown comic books, and I don't like. Yeah, I'm not condescending to people who still read comic books, I just don't get it, but yeah, it's just like I don't really get any joy out of comic books anymore. So that may have something to do. I didn't get any joy out of Watchmen, because it really is just a long ass comic book. And that's all I have to say.
Why do you think you don't get any joy out of comics?
I don't know. I think it's one of those like it's just a childish thing maybe, and maybe a subconscious thing. Like, okay, you have to do away with childish things when you're not a child. That's what people say. And maybe that's how I took maybe I internalized that. But I don't know. I think people mature differently, and I matured in such a way that comic books aren't appealing to me anymore. For the most part, video games too. Like if I could tell my 12-year-old self, like, hey, you're not going to be into video games so much, I'd have been like, psh, please, old man, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's just not fun anymore. And it was never like a academic undertaking. It was just, something you could do for fun. I don't know. Maybe cell phones killed. Maybe the internet killed my love for comic books because I guess it was around the same time I started to do the death match that I stopped reading comic books. But you said you weren't into comic books either.
Not really.
You don't read them anymore.
No. But I never really did read them a whole lot. Like I said, it was mostly just Star Wars comics.
Yeah, I wasn't like crazy about comic books either. It's like it was just a casual thing. Like when we went to the grocery store, I would usually go read magazines, and sometimes I would read comic books. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was a casual fan at the height.
I actually had a pretty big collection for a little while. I think my son has them all now, if he still has them. It wasn't like a collection where I wiped them down.
Sleeves,
I had sleeves for some of them. Some of the ones that I bought at a comic book store actually came in sleeves. I would put them back in there, but I read every comic book I purchased, and I was never a collector. I just had them because I would buy them.
Yeah.
But I do still read them. I just finished reading The Punisher, but it's like one that I wanted when I was 16 or 17 and never could afford. And it's a graphic novel of the Punisher's time in the Vietnam War. And I mean, this idea of growing out of it, as comic books are grown up now, and video games are grown up now. It's not. I don't think that really rings true because whether you've lost interest in them for whatever reasons, it's not that you've grown out of them because they've grown with us.
Well,
comic books have grown with us. Games have grown with us.
I understand that, but I'm just saying like people do mature differently.
Yeah.
Like it's not like
I
didn't play the right video games. That is the reason I don't really play them so much anymore.
I think if anything, it's a lack of time. I don't have time for video games. I don't have time for comic books like I did when I was younger. If I did, I would most definitely do more of both, I think.
I think both comic books and video games, it's essentially just another vehicle to provide a narrative. I actually think video games might be the best vehicle for telling a story because it's more engaging and you have more input on how the narrative unfolds, and you look at like something like Mass Effect where you have this really well crafted story, but you can impact the story based on the decisions that you make as you interact with the story.
Yeah, I never played it, but that sounds pretty neat. Do you guys remember when Superman died? The comic book. Dylan,
Yeah.
You probably would have been like 5 years old.
Yeah,
or something.
no, I don't.
You're
I
young.
don't really remember that.
But he died, and like the comic book was silver, and it was like. But then, like 2 weeks later, they brought him back to life, and I was like, "What?"
No, they didn't.
I think
no,
they did.
didn't.
Pretty sure they did.
No, 2 weeks later there were new Supermen. You had the Man of Steel, Superboy.
Yeah,
You had all these people vying for.
So
to be the
instead
new
of Clark
Superman.
Kent, it was like Clancy Kensington.
Yeah.
But it was the same. It was the same thing. I'm pretty sure they just came out with a Superman movie a couple of years.
I'll
Which, by
tell
the
you-
way, I know I'm kind of like just starting all over the place. Too many superhero movies. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We need to take a. There needs to be a moratorium on superhero movies because it's too much.
It gets overwhelming, or I don't know if overwhelming is the right word, but when these characters and mainly the Avengers, I think they're the biggest culprit in this. Like every time they turn around, like in order to justify having this big, blockbuster movie event, like the movie has to be big, it has to be spectacle. So like you have these heroes every time they turn around, they're facing this, world threatening, enemy. And yeah, it plays out the same way the whole time. I haven't seen, I don't know what happens in the latest Avengers movie, but they fight the big bad and save the world, and it's gotten kind of it's boring now. Like
Yeah.
it's just
It's tired. Maybe
Yeah.
it was wired at first, but it's tired now. You got to find the balance, folks. HMS listener.
I think it's there's so many of them out there though that it's hard to find the diamonds in the rough.
yeah.
The last Wolverine movie, Logan. Did you guys catch that?
I've heard it's very good, but
That's
I
I heard
haven't
it's
seen it yet.
awesome.
I heard it's one of those movies that jerks the tears. It doesn't jerk the tears. It's a comic book movie, but they went like no kid needs to see that movie. Like I think it's rated R. I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah.
It's rated R for a reason. It's grisly. And you see the character of the Wolverine as a.
Don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen it.
You see the character of the Wolverine as he's vulnerable, which is awesome because he's never been in any book. You've never seen him vulnerable really, and dude, it's well worth watching. Other comic book movies recently, I mean, like I liked Deadpool, but I never read Deadpool. I just kind of know he's like a funny comic book character, and it was funny, but it too seemed like I could have done without that. That was
I never. I watched like the first 15 minutes of it, and it just didn't hold my attention.
yeah,
Guardians of the Galaxy was very good. The
Yeah.
first one.
that was great.
I heard it was. Yeah, I know. I said like too many superhero movies. I actually haven't seen
Any of them?
Really, any of them.
But you're right. There are way too many of them, and I think who owns Marvel now? Did Disney?
Disney. Yeah.
Disney bought Marvel and Star Wars and God, and who else did Disney buy out? Everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they're making money over it, making money on it hand over fist, and they're going to keep doing it until they stop making money on it.
Yeah.
If the quality of them, like you said, the Avengers, I'm not interested. It's going to end exactly how you think it will. My son is really always talking about a Civil War Captain America. I think that's an Avengers movie as well, where they're fighting each other. And then oh God, I was stuck on a flight and watched Superman versus Batman because there was nothing else, and that was just.
I've heard it's very bad.
That was just utter garbage.
I've heard it's not good. I just speak. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
I was just gonna it seems like all the DC movies, the movies based on the DC comics, tend to be poorly made, and I really regret that because Ansel, you said you were a fan of the Fantastic Four,
Yeah,
and they've made several Fantastic Four movies, and they've all been
none of
bad.
them are fantastic. I haven't seen any of the Fantastic Four movies.
Which I regret that because I think the Fantastic Four has probably one of the best villains in Doctor Doom.
Yeah, Doctor Doom.
He whips.
Yeah, he slaps. Okay, I took my kids to see Big Hero 6 is the name of this movie. I took them to see it in the theater. You heard about this Big Hero 6?
Yeah. Big white guy.
Yeah, he was a big white guy. So we get our tickets at the ticket counter, and the ticket counteress says, "You're going to want to stick around until after the credits because there's a big surprise." I'm like, "That's great. That's awesome. I love surprises." I guess it's and we were all excited about it, and if you watch that movie until after the credits, like one of the characters finds like a secret passage in his house, and it turns out like his father is Stan Lee.
Oh wow!
Well, settle down. It's actually it was so not worth my time. I was like, what? I mean, it's like I don't care about this. Nobody cares about this. And then I learned later that Stan Lee makes a cameo in all of these movies. Like it's kind of a thing that
Yeah.
So I took the kids to see Black Panther, and like he goes to a craps table, he's like, I'll roll these dice, and then like the camera stops on him, and it's just like it's a cameo that's not really a cameo anymore because it puts him in center frame and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's just like I don't revere Stan Lee, and I was just wondering, like, do you guys revere comic book writers at all? Like, they just seem like completely normal people to me, and I don't really put them up on any kind of pedestal.
Yeah. No.
I don't know if I revere Stan Lee, but I do appreciate and respect the passion he has for his creations, and that he's kind of a legend in the genre.
But he's kind of like, isn't he kind of like Napoleon Dynamite, where he's like, this is pretty much my favorite animal. It's a spider and a man. You know, it's like it's pretty great. It's a Spider-Man. That's kind of like what he does for a living, and like I could do that. People who do something I could do. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say that, but yeah, and I couldn't even do that really. I'm just kind of joshing. I'm just trying to, we have been wasting away in Margaritaville, and I think we're all kind of like what's the word? What are we right
Tired.
Hungover.
now? Well,
We are in
things.
a beautiful setting here. This
Yeah, this is
Choctawhatchee
very
Bay.
nice.
The moon is full. The wind is blowing in off the bay. I'm sure it's picking up on the mic some, but
It's okay. Yeah, like I said, do not adjust your earbuds. The thing about Dylan, I was telling Dylan earlier today, it's like I bet Jimmy Buffett is like so over the beach by now, but he has to keep doing it. He's kind of like the Post family, to throw back to a couple weeks ago. Like Jimmy Buffett, like I wonder when the last time he stepped foot on a beach. I bet he hates steel drums already. Like I bet he hated steel drums by the time he's 25. Because who doesn't? Like who can stand that past into adulthood?
When was the last time that he actually had a margarita?
Well, he's probably had some margaritas.
or lost his shaker of salt.
Margaritas, I've learned, are like very, very high calorie. It's like
They're disgusting.
no, margaritas are great.
Oh God, they're so nasty.
No, margaritas are fantastic.
Oh.
But no,
yeah,
it's a lot of sugar.
yeah, it's not something that you really need to be.
Somebody needs to make a Jimmy Buffett comic book.
He did have a musical on Broadway, like Margaritaville the musical. Did you guys hear about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a clip on the radio. It sounded kind of silly. It sounded kind of lame.
It's like the story about how he replaced his flip flop after he steps on a pop top.
I think maybe he was like retracing his steps to find out how he got that tattoo of the Mexican cutie. I don't know, but
That sounds absolutely ridiculous.
yeah, it was like a show tunes version of like that song he does with Alan Jackson. Make it a hurricane before I go insane. It's only 12:30, but I don't care.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's 5:00 somewhere.
I'm not familiar.
And this is the part where the drums go. Back to Watchmen.
I want to watch the movie again.
What I actually bought the movie because it was on sale
Mhm.
at a local establishment, So I'll let you watch it. It's very gruesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the most gruesome thing you'll see, but you can't watch it around any of your children,
Right,
for
of
sure.
course, of course. Well, I wouldn't want the kids reading the book either.
And they changed some stuff up too. It's like how he burns the guy who who killed the girl when Rorschach became Rorschach.
Yeah.
In the movie, he doesn't burn him. He takes like a cleaver and just
Hacks him.
Yeah, like goes right into his skull. The scene in the prison when they're breaking out Rorschach is like way more gruesome in the movie, where he ties the guy to like where the lock is, so they can't cut it out. So instead of just killing the guy, they cut his arms off and stuff in the movie.
Well, that's in the book too.
I don't think they cut his arms off.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well, they kill him first and then cut through him, right?
No, I think he's alive when they cut his
Oh,
arms off.
Jesus.
Rorschach, he's the iconic. He's like he would be the front man of Watchmen if.
I wouldn't say that. I would say either Dr. Manhattan or the comedian would be the front man.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. But let's go through the characters. You got Rorschach, you got the comedian, you got Dr. Manhattan, Night Owl, Silk Spectre, Ozymandias, who by the way, that is a cool ending. Like he has a way to
Prevent World War III.
to prevent World War III, to get to retire masked vigilantes and secure world peace. But poor Rorschach.
No.
Poor 3 million people in New York he kills, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's a quandary. It's like, hey, but I think we can all agree that.
Well, it's like that like ethics thought puzzle where you got to train, and like you can route the train to like go left and run over one person, or go right and run over 5 people. Like, is it okay to do that, to sacrifice that one person to save the 5, or
Or it's like
sacrifice the 3 million people to save the 70 billion?
yeah, it's a quandary. All right. What about? It's like what is it like? The the Kobayashi Maru. Have you heard about this, Kevin? Kobayashi Maru. You guys know this? This is from Star Trek. The Kobayashi Maru. This is the unwinnable situation that Spock creates. It's like you have to go into Klingon space. It's like you either abandon your shipmates who are in trouble, who are in Klingon space. You can abandon them and let them die, or you can try to go rescue them, but you break interstellar law. It's the unwinnable situation. And old Kirk, he's so wily. He reprograms the simulation, and he found a way to win the unwinnable situation. Moving on, what's your favorite character in Watchmen?
Ooh. I have to say Rorschach.
Rorschach.
Yeah.
1 point for Rorschach.
Well, I mean, everything about him, like, he's a disturbed, deranged person, and he is not interested in arresting criminals at all. But I think, like, most of the times you see Rorschach in action, he's breaking people's fingers for information.
Yeah.
That's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
The guy that got to play Rorschach in the movie was perfect. He was really good. Like,
Yeah.
it was like a perfect casting. And he did a really good job.
When you get the backstory in the Book of Rorschach, though, it really brings him out as a character in full. He becomes for me, the most fleshed out character. And then he's also the driving force in getting something rolling to try and figure out what's going on, who's killing the heroes. He just won't let it go. He's fun. He's fun to follow to the end, good to the last drop.
Yeah, Rorschach was cool. I think I don't think he's aged that great because it's like something Dylan said before. He kind of like defined a category, and like I think there are a lot of Rorschach rip-offs in modern times. It kind of like dilutes the impact of Rorschach as a character a little bit. But he's still very interesting, and I like Rorschach. I think that's a good choice, Elijah.
Thank you.
Dylan, what is your favorite character from Watchmen?
If I had to pick one, it would probably have to be Dr. Manhattan.
Why Dr. Manhattan? John Osterstein or something like that.
Osterman.
John Joel Osteen or something like that.
He I don't know. It's an interesting descent from like you get his backstory where he's very human and he just gradually loses that humanity as he comes to terms with like essentially his godhood, and I find that very interesting. And also I really like how he kind of has like a Billy Pilgrim thing going on where he's kind of unstuck in time. Like he sees time not in a linear manner.
Right. Or I was thinking more like Timequake, where he sees, he knows exactly what's going to unfold, but he can't really do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like even he being essentially a god in the flesh, like he still can't, you still can't stop anything. And I like how at the end, after, Ozymandias explains what he's done to him, he sees that the villain is right. And
he's able to just immediately say, okay. Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think Dr. Manhattan was my favorite character. He's the one that I was most interested in. He built like a glass clock castle on Mars, and
that was cool.
Yeah.
He was just he was a neat guy, and I enjoyed reading about him. I guess I didn't really hate it. I may have said that earlier, but I didn't really mean it. I'm sorry, Watchmen. But it just like I feel like it was trying to make a really grand statement, and it just didn't. It didn't land for me. I don't really. Maybe I just couldn't follow it, but I feel like it was just kind of a dud. But it was an interesting dud.
I don't know about it trying to make a grand statement. I think it is just telling a good story, and I like a good story. Thought it was good.
Do you think? Would you say it's fair to call it a novel? Like, does that bother you at all that it's in Times? I'm gonna stop doing free advertising for Time magazine, but
I don't 100% agree with that. It's a graphic novel. It already has a name. You can't just take graphic off of it and say, "Oh, look, now it's a novel." It's a graphic novel.
This is from the Wikipedia page for the novel, under the header "Defining the Genre." First sentence there: a novel is a long fictional narrative which describes intimate human experiences. Using that definition, sure, it's a novel. Another fun fact here: Alan Moore prefers his works to be referred to as comics instead of graphic novels, much like Marjane Satrapi.
That's
cool.
Interesting.
Well,
It's easy to call this a comic because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it was 12 of them, and now
Yeah.
it's bound into a novel.
But the good news is we're kind of close to the end. I'm about to take my tired, gosh darn rear end to bed. But before we do that, let's rate Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Is that his name, Dave
I
Gibbons?
think that's right. Yeah. It was, hang on.
Yeah, let's get this right.
It was Dave Gibbons, Alan Moore, and John Higgins did the coloring.
Yeah, I don't really count that. I'm sorry, John Higgins. I'm sure you're a lovely guy, but
I don't think you can dismiss that because, like, a lot of the color, the use of color in the Watchmen, it was very striking at times.
you've convinced me. You're very you're very persuasive, John Higgins. Welcome back to the club of people who get credit for this book. Let's give our ratings. Do either of you want to go first?
No.
No, not really. I don't have anything.
I'll go first. Think about what you guys want to give it. I talked a little bit about Final Fantasy VII. This book is the exact same experience with me. Like it's a beloved piece of culture, of American culture that I just don't get. I just don't. I don't. It doesn't. It doesn't do it for me. Yeah. So didn't hate it. Definitely didn't like it. I'm going to give it a Buster Sword. That's kind of like the gimmicky weapon in Final Fantasy VII. That huge sword that's like bigger than Dylan here, as big and broad as Dylan. You know what I'm talking about? It looks like a razor.
I have been called a buster before, so it fits.
Yeah. So one Buster Sword, just to represent just how baffled I am that this is taking hold. I just don't get it. Okay, Elijah.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's get that rating.
I'm going to give Alan Moore's and company's Watchmen 4 spent shell casings out of 5. A spent shell casing, and if you don't know,
For those of you who've never read Punisher,
is a bullet that has been fired and spent, and the casing comes out of the gun. Now, I give it that because I like it a lot. 5 is the best shell casing rating you could get. I'm subtracting 1 shell casing because the ending hurts for me. I'm not a big fan of the ending. Everything else about it I loved, and it really reminded me how much I love good, violent, graphic novels. Lots of fun.
okay, very nice. Dylan.
I'm going to take the easy path here and give it the comedian's smiley face button, just because it puts a smile on my face.
Bloodied or not bloodied?
Nah, not bloodied. Just clean smiley face.
Okay.
Just rolling back prices.
The
all
only
over
thing
the
is,
place.
like, the cover of the book is already a smiley face, pretty much.
Oh yeah,
That's okay. It's just it'll be smiley face on smiley face. It's all right. I don't mean to make you doubt yourself. It's fine. It'll work. Conch, take it.
That would be me.
Yeah, here you go.
All right. Well, HMS listener, we're going to take another trip into nonfiction for the next show. I hope you'll join me. We're going to be reading something pertinent when it was written in the 1800s and just as pertinent today. We're going to be reading Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. I have reasons for us reading Age of Reason, but I'll share those on the show. I hope you'll join us for it. It should be enlightening.
hopefully it won't be a pain.
It shouldn't be a pain. Shouldn't be a pain. That's Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. It's also it's free on Google. If you have Google Play Books, just get it. It's free.
Use your common sense and get this book for free instead of paying for it. You knucklehead. All right, let's wrap this up, guys. I'm ready to call it a night.
I'm tired.
After a eventful vacation. Capping it off with a little little book club, and then we're gonna go good night. We're gonna go night. We're gonna go gentle into that good night.
We're gonna go to a nightclub. Good nightclub.
so to speak. Yeah, guys. Thank you for listening. Sorry if you usually listen to us like while you're working out. Sorry about this one. But you know what? It's summertime. We're on vacation, and it's kind of hard to sneak away to club a book. But we did it, guys.
We did it.
Congratulations.
Woohoo.
Book club over. Book club out. I'm Ansel. See you in 2 weeks when we talk about Age of Reason. Is that what it's called?
That's it. Thomas Paine's Age of Reason.
Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. Get it for free. Join us if you, we would be delighted if you joined us. Thank you for listening. Ta-ta for now. GTG. L8R.